us. I'm Rick, and I'm here with my colleagues Nancy and Jennifer. We're all health coaches in the HMR program, and thank you for watching with us tonight, for participating. We know there's a lot you could be doing late on a Thursday, and just really glad that you're joining us for this in conversation, which we think is going to be a pretty important and helpful one, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. We're going to cover a lot of ground here. We'll just start by setting the stage. On our Facebook page, we have seen a post, different versions of it, but many times, and it sounds something like this. My weight loss is slowing down, or my weight loss has stopped, and I am frustrated. Or a different version of it could relate more to if you're in phase 2. It could sound something like, I am working so hard here, but I'm still struggling with my weight. Maybe the weight's going up, or maybe someone's trying to lose weight and they haven't had any success in doing that. Really is one of the more frustrating things that people can experience, isn't it, guys?
Oh, Rick, I mean, it's so frustrating when you work really hard all week.
Yeah.
And then you get on that scale and it doesn't do what you expect it to do. And what makes it worse is a lot of times we don't even know why that's happening.
Yeah. It's really, it's incredibly frustrating. We're going to really get into that. But one of our big messages tonight, because everyone has this experience at some point, doesn't feel like that when it's happening, can feel like a really lonely place to be in. But the message here is, if you are not seeing the scale respond, even though you feel like you're working your heart out, you are not alone. This happens to people. It's a fairly common experience. And that's why we're talking about it here.
Yeah, in fact, Jen, not to throw you under the bus, if you will, but you've shared, I mean, I work with you, and you've shared that you've had this experience. So, tell us what's the first thing you say to yourself when this happens to you? You get on the scale and you're really not happy with what you see.
Yeah.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that it just hasn't happened one time. It has happened many times. And just coincidentally, it happened this week. And I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but there's almost not even words for how frustrated you are. Like, I can think of some explicits that I may be thinking, but it's just maddening. It's like you hop off the scale, you're like, wait a second, that can't be right, because I know I didn't just gain 4 pounds this week. I know that didn't just happen. So you get off the scale, you hop back on the scale, and then you're like, no, that's it. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to hop off again, and I'm going to hop back on. And then you realize that that's right. And it's so many emotions. I know for me, especially if I've had a really good week, especially if I've pushed myself hard and I know what I've done, it's just like, the heck with this. What if I wouldn't have done it? Like, I could have, it's almost like you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. That's how I feel. So
absolutely. It's such a range of emotions. We'll get into that. I see more people are joining us here. If you guys could help me just welcome folks, but I'll just sort of set the stage again. We're talking about how, if you're in phase 1, how to maybe increase your weight loss. And for those of you in phase 2, how to manage your calories more tightly to either slow down or even stop weight gain, if that's something you've been experiencing, or maybe even tighten the calorie management to a level where you could start to maybe lose even a little bit of weight, even in phase 2. But a big here, Jen, the other big point, and then please let me turn it over. It can feel hopeless. And that's what we've heard many times. Jen, you just sort of shared how it is for you. But the real message here is that there's always a next step that you can take to better manage your calories, regardless of which phase of the program you're in. Sorry to step on you there, Jen. Go ahead.
No, I was just, so many folks are joining us, and I know Janice mentioned she's really excited for this event. And so Janice, I'm glad that you're here, and others, because this is part of it. The journey that we're on with practicing a healthy lifestyle, whether it's you're wanting to lose weight or you're wanting to manage your weight loss or keep up healthy behavior, it's just part of it. A very frustrating part of it, but a real part. So we have Paul and Lori. Hi, Lori. See you in the morning. We have Jennifer and Randy and Trish and John, Susan. We have about close to 40 people on with us now, Rick.
Yeah, great. Hey, Larry, Candace, Cheryl, all people that I have either are working with or have worked with. Psyched to have you here for this conversation. I'm going to ask you and really everyone who's watching, bring your experience to this. If you've had experience breaking through when the scale isn't responding, we really want to generate a lot of ideas here.
Barbara says, unfortunately, I live my life based on my weigh-in. And boy, that's, that's tough if the scale is controlling you. So, hey, Sue's here, John's here, some of our colleagues, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Candace, I know that's somebody you always are excited to see. Cheryl, Kathy, Bob. So we've got a lot of people.
Yeah,
Glad
Barbara,
you're here.
I suspect, Barbara, if you could see all of our viewers with your heartfelt comment there, you'd see a lot of head nods. That moment of getting on the scale, it's such a momentous period in the week, and it can really have you really deciding how your week went based on that one thing, independent of how the week went, just based on that. So we'll get into a little of why the scale might not be responding, but just know you're not alone in that experience. It's just so tough.
Now, if you're listening, and I know we have some people out there who have had plateaus in phase 1 or phase 2, and you've been able to break through them, we want to hear from you. Again, our theme tonight is this is not hopeless. There is a next step. So if you've had a chance to break through, please let us know. Help provide the hope, and we'll ask you, you can start posting that now, and we'll ask you to post it throughout the episode.
Quick hello to David, who I work with. Sorry, Jen. Hi, David. Great to see you here. Jen, what question do we want to ask people?
Yeah, so well, one, we still have folks coming on, and make sure you're saying hello. And again, our topic is, how to increase your weight loss in phase 1 if it's potentially slowing down, but really just talking about right out of the chute how frustrating it can be and the mixed emotions that we have going into that. And I see many of you already commenting. Sorry, my comments keep disappearing. It's like they're ghosting, going away. So Roger's here. He says it's depressing. So it's very emotionally, the scale, that number is emotionally filled, very heavy, and a lot. And so let me see. So Susan asked, clarification, are you talking about having more of an isolated, unexpected gain after you think you deserved a loss, or more of a little gain based on maybe some not so great choices for a period of time? I've actually had more of the latter. And Nancy, Rick, you chime in, but I think all of the above, really.
Right.
It's all
Absolutely.
Frustrating.
Yeah, it's like when that you got on the scale and you don't know why it happened, but also when you get on the scale, which is good that you do, and and it's gaining, and you sort of know it's gaining, or maybe you're not sure, but it's gaining. So yes, it's all of the above.
Yeah. So just if as you're watching, if you haven't sort of put your stake in the ground on this question, we'll just ask it one last time. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when the scale doesn't respond to the week that you've just put in? What do you say to yourself? Be honest. Don't edit yourself. Bring a little candor to that, maybe even a little humor. Sometimes that's helpful to distance yourself from that experience. And then I think we will look at a couple of other comments related to that and then sort of summarize it.
Yeah. So share your thoughts when you get on the scale and you're not happy with what you're saying. Jennifer, son of a beach.
Son of a beach.
I like John's comment here. There's really nothing harder than managing your weight in today's gap or today's unsupported food environment.
Yeah, that's so
Isn't that
true.
the truth, guys?
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, this is just such a difficult thing. It's not like a one-time event. It is truly a journey that never ends, and that's part of what makes it so challenging. Yeah, Trudy.
We're getting some good responses here now. Candace said,
"Not fair, Trudy."
It's not.
Yeah, and well, maybe I won't post my weight this time, and that's normal reaction, right?
Yes.
I love it. Larry's one of yours, Rick, and he is always on the flip side of providing that perspective.
Yes, he is.
And so we are going to be getting to that, but he does, remind us not to forget. But, we can definitely live in that moment of being frustrated. We want to acknowledge that you don't have to not be frustrated or mad or however it is that you're feeling. You are justified and you're not alone in your feelings.
Yeah.
You've got to, are you kidding me?
Myra.
Myra, are you kidding me?
Yes. Shock. How can this be? What did I do wrong?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, and then let's just end on a high or low, depending on how you want to interpret it. John's, oh crap.
Yeah.
That's what in
That says it all, right? So now, I don't know if you're aware of it, but we did do a similar thought starter post earlier this week. We asked people to pick which emoji best expressed their reaction to getting on the scale. And we had sad, angry. I don't know, Rick, if you want to show this.
Yeah, here I go. I'll put it up here.
Perplexed.
I got tickled when we looked at this, when I was looking at this, because y'all were very censored, because my response was explicit in the comments. I had the little mad emoji with the blanks over his mouth, which I think Susan also can relate to that. For that.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Again, it's a whole range of emotions. What seemed to be the winner in the poll was sad. And it is. I mean, it's like, this is so hard, and we don't need to be sad, but it was sad. And then angry, perplexed, shocked, kind of equal, right? 24 angry, 22 perplexed, shocked sort of goes together. So clearly a lot of people responded, which we appreciate. And this is an emotional issue.
That's what I was going to say, Nancy. And I think sad is the top one, because we so want to be where we want to be in yesterday, not, and it's hard to remember and keep in mind that it takes more than just a week. It takes more than one meal, or, it just, and that's why it's so sad, because you want it so bad.
Yeah. We've got a few themes here for the night. One is you're not alone. This happens to virtually everybody. So people need to hear that. Okay.
Yeah.
But the other is that it can really feel hopeless in the moment. And I think that sad descriptor is most close of the ones that we provided to the hopeless feeling, because it really can just feel so hopeless. It just can feel like such an insurmountable task. But our full theme there is it can feel hopeless, but it's so important to not give up, to keep in the game. Because if you do give up, I think we all know what's likely to happen. When you give up, you're not likely to see better results.
Right.
It's the opposite. And Nancy, you made this point when we were talking earlier today. You may not, certainly in the long term, actually fix how you're feeling about your weight.
Right.
Yeah. So that brings us to our third perspective, which is there's always a next step to take. So let's get into that. Your next step. And, our goal is we're going to review a number of different strategies. Again, we're asking you to participate in that brainstorming. But the idea is there something that you can take from our conversation tonight so that you can implement whatever strategy it is to support yourself to get even better results in this next week ahead?
Yeah. So are you all ready for the next question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we get into that question, I did want to read just what Lisa mentioned. I've started not weighing daily. I used to get more discouraged by my perceived lack of progress, but I have decided that I'm in this for the long haul. And as long as I'm sticking to the plan, I will get there to my goal weight. And that's one of the reasons, big reasons, why in the program, we really only expect folks to weigh one time a week. The same day, the same time, and keeping that consistent. So really glad you mentioned that, Lisa. Now, again,
and I have a quick flip side to that. I think that's largely for most people. I have worked with enough people. There's a much smaller percentage of people who, for whatever reason, getting on that scale every day just has them walking the straight and narrow. But it's really a decision. Is it helpful to do that, or does it put you on, as you're alluding to, Jen, the emotional roller coaster, which is not productive? Most people, that's the case. The latter case. I just flip side that.
Now, and some people are just fine. They use it as perspective, but I think majority of folks it's that other. And so again, like you just heard Rick talk, we want to invite those of you who have broken through those plateaus where you've had weight gains, or maybe you've seen the scale. I know Lori's on. Lori, I'd love to hear you speaking to this, because I know we were dealing with this a month or two ago, but how you've broken through the plateaus on the scale. And we want you to share about that in the comments. What happened? How did you break through it? And so make sure we're getting the chats going with how you were able to get through it, because that's why we're here, to help support you.
Yeah. Jen, can I just chime in? Jennifer, it's so pithy. I've given up every time before. It's time to stop giving up. That's beautiful.
Oh, Jennifer. And you are a great example of that,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You are a great example of that. Look
And
at Bob.
that's
I love
so
this too,
true.
Bob. I'm down 254 pounds, 0.6 pounds as of yesterday. Bob, man,
way to go.
that is just unbelievable. Congratulations. And John, who I know has lost a tremendous amount of weight.
Yep.
For me, being in phase 2, I practice phase 1 to turn things around.
That's great. Love that.
Yeah, going back into more structure makes sense.
We'll actually build on that. Here.
Yeah, we are going to be.
So again, we've said it, but let's keep saying, if you've had some success breaking through plateaus or just not seeing the results, if you could share a little bit about that experience, and if there was anything specific that you did, that's really ultimately where we're going with this conversation. What are some boots on the ground strategies that you can practice? And
Rick, I forget who mentioned this, but she brings up your point that you were going to get to about some of there are times that different things can happen. So I forget, I'm sorry if you mentioned that. I didn't write down your name, but yeah, there are other factors that are going to be considered. And I know, Rick, we were going to talk about that.
Yeah, in fact, I do want to start with the fact that there are times when we retain water.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, I'm just going to give you a phase 1 example, because this can happen in either phase, but phase 1, you've had a strong week. It's like you've been in the box all 7 days. You've got your physical activity in, you've lost weight. You just know it, right?
Yeah.
And then you get on the scale and it looks like you haven't, or maybe you've lost a half a pound, and that it's just like not what you looked for. So why? Well, if you really are in the box, it's most likely because you've retained water. And, there are some reasons why that can happen, because our body is a great percentage of water. So for example, you could have had more sodium this week in the foods that you were eating. You could have done a lot more physical activity. If you have sore muscles, for example, that means your body is kind of retaining water to protect them. Yep. So that's another reason. Of course, for
Nancy, are you speaking to me? Because I was at like 4 pounds this week, and I know this highest PA I've had in such a long time. Yep. And I was frustrated, and it's like that perspective that you need. And I feel like I'm in my session, Nancy, and my muscles are sore. So I mean, there are reasons.
There are reasons, and of course, for women, there's the monthly cycle that can impact, and then there are medications that tend to have you retain water. So there are reasons. So, and that's why it's important. We always recommend that not only do you look at your weight change every week, but you also look at what your average weight change per week is doing over time. And again, what's my weight change per week if I divide by 3 over 3 weeks or over 4 weeks? And that's important to note, whether you're in phase 1 or phase 2.
Yeah, and we want to get back to, we have several folks answering the question about, what you did to break through your plateau and what happened. How did you break through? And Lori, I was just looking back to make sure you spoke up, and she said, fortunately, my plateau only lasted a couple of weeks. I broke it by listening. Now, Lori, you and I know what you mean, but can you say more about that in the comments exactly? So
she actually does here, Jen. I think a little later, following my coach's advice, trusting her and the program. Thanks, Jen. More is better, and adjusting what types of fruits and vegetables I was eating. Well, now you're starting to get into the territory of what we're going to be covering here. That's great. I think that's what you were alluding to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, keep those comments coming if you were in a plateau and how you pushed through, what happened, what did you do? But, moving on to our next question that we really want you all to chime in on is, who can testify to the fact that water retention is real and can really play games with the scale? I know those water swings just happen, or fluid swings. Like I shared mine, 4 pounds. I think it was 4 pounds, Nancy. I can't.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, it was one of those that I was like, I want to forget about it. But okay, 4 pounds.
I have to say, I just want to give a nod to Sandra, who's posted, because Sandra, I think, really listened tonight to this, but she said she started week 44 today. So she's been,
Wow.
and I'm assuming you're still in phase 1. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking you are. Last week and this week have been the only 2 weeks that I have gained. I've increased my physical activity the last couple of weeks and have been starving, but staying in the box the entire time. So really listen, because we don't want you starving. And I think that you'll find that there's some solutions that we're going to recommend that you try.
Well, I think if she's been in the box in the last couple of weeks, right, this could be what we're talking about right now. There could be some water retention right here.
Yeah.
And I tell you, through the years, we've just seen some crazy patterns with water retention.
That's true.
Yeah. I've had a couple of times working with people who had a pattern that happened over and over again, where they didn't lose, working hard, being in the box, and then they would lose a big one.
That's true.
And the big one. It was a bizarre pattern, but I've seen that more than once.
I mean, the one thing about Sandra is she hasn't had that all along. This is just like, it's just happening. So yes. And again, you said you've increased your PA. So again, part of this could be, if you've increased your PA like Jen, you could be retaining water for that reason. So.
And you're starving. And the coach in me is saying, Sandra, we're going to come back to you going towards this episode as we get into some of these next steps that you're going to take away. Because I think you will get some real things that you can sample this week.
And Jennifer immediately responded, she's with more is better. Also, the increase in physical activity can need time for your body to adjust. I think Jennifer knows what she's talking about these days. I've had this happen before. So anyway, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Sandra, I'm really glad you're here. All right.
We've kind of hit hard on the water thing. I just want to hit the flip side of that, and then we'll move on. If you're in the box or you're working to be in the box and you have not lost weight, just talking to a phase 1 person, and it's been happening for 3 or 4 weeks or more, there's probably something going on beyond simple water retention. And that brings us to, in 90%, 99% of the cases, the issue of calories comes up. You can't avoid the issue of calories. So we're really that's the focus here. It's talking about what are the best strategies to help you control your calories more effectively. So calories, guys, that is really the foundation for the rest of the discussion here. And to really set the stage for that conversation, let's just take a minute. I want to revisit something that we talked about during our Halloween episode a couple of weeks ago, guys. How it's so easy to eat more calories than you think. There are so many factors involved. In that Halloween episode, we talked about the fact that just if high calorie food is there, we're just more likely to eat it. We talked about when there are bigger portions of food, it's easier to eat more of it. The more variety of tempting foods are around, the easier it is to eat more calories. And then lastly, it's easy to kid ourselves and think we're not eating many calories. So there's so many different factors. But let's just isolate, guys, Nance and Jen, let's isolate for a minute on the bites, the licks, and the tastes, the BLTs, the things that it's almost strange credulity to think that they can add up as quickly as they can. So let's go there. I want to just date myself. Growing up, there was only one kind of Oreo, the regular Oreo. Many of you know of what I speak. And then a big epiphany, they had the double stuff.
I was going to say there wasn't even double stuff back then.
No, there was not the double stuff. It was not, believe me, when that happened, it was a big deal. What is this thing? Oh my God, it's so extreme. It felt extreme, didn't it, Nance?
Oh, totally.
But then we had the mega stuff, and then we have the triple double, and then we have now the biggest Oreo is called the most stuff. So check out this little graphic here on the far right. There you have your most stuff, Oreos. And the reason I'm sharing this, the original Oreo that many of us grew up with was 55 calories. First of all, good luck eating just one of them, 55 calories. But as they've introduced more and more different Oreos, the calories have gone up. And now this latest Oreo is double that. It's 110 calories for one Oreo.
Oh my God.
10 calories less than a 120 shake. You gotta be
That's
kidding.
so sad.
Just,
One.
just so glad we're all so able to eat just one Oreo.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Right.
So, you know, this is not about Oreos. This is about the fact that in our food culture today, the food industry has figured out ways to cram so many calories into small little packages. In Oreos, at least you know there are calories. Sometimes it's completely hidden. Nancy, do you remember the story that we told at a training once where we were speaking about just leftovers and how easy it is to eat that? What do you remember about that story?
This was really, we had fun with this because I had younger kids at the time, you did too. And, you know, I'm sure people can relate to finishing the food on the kids' plates, right? Like, you know, what kids are keen. So we looked at, all right, so what are some common things? So one thing was, you know, macaroni and cheese, right? So
High-fat mac and cheese.
high fat mac and cheese. And we did a little bit like the size of a golf ball of mac and cheese.
Or less.
And then, go ahead, what?
Or less.
Or less.
Mhm.
Then we thought hot dog, right? So we had like a little piece of the hot dog, tiny piece of hot dog. And then the classic, at least my daughter never ate the crusts of her sandwiches, right? So we had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and we had the crust of the sandwich.
Yeah.
And then we had like, you know, a couple chicken nuggets. So just all little easy bites, you know, that you can forget about. You're eating, you're grabbing them at the table, or maybe you're even eating them as you're bringing them to the sink, whatever
Right.
we do.
Throw them
Right?
away.
Yeah, I mean, come on, you know,
Not
I
a
think
lot of food. I mean, one of
No.
them, we compared it versus about this size, like the original iPod Nano. It was like this tiny little thing.
so. These are all like truly like small bites that you would forget about. You know, of course you'd forget about them. You didn't eat them. And, you know, it was like so clear that they would add up to 400 or 500 calories. And it would be, you know, people are mystery, like, why is my weight loss slowing down? Or why am I working so hard in phase 2 and I'm not losing any weight? Whichever, if you can play it in any scenario. And again, it was these tiny things that were creeping in that are just like almost like automatic responses. Like you don't even think about it, just pop them in your mouth.
Yep.
And it's hard because it's almost like, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but sometimes if I'm meeting my like shakes and entrees and fruits and vegetables, it's almost like those things don't matter, right? I don't have to remember those because I'm doing so many good things that it negates it. But yeah, I know moms and dads, if you can relate to that, grandparents relate to, you know, aunts, uncles relate to just finishing it can so add up and we don't even think about it.
Here's another example for you. And now what we're talking about calories. And we're making the point that they are so sneaky that there's almost always more calories than you think. And we're making this point because when you're in this situation where your weight loss has slowed down or stopped, or you're gaining weight in phase 2, it's almost hard to believe that it's calories, isn't it, guys? It's like, there's something else going on here. It can't be little old innocent calories. So here's an example for you. I just went on a long, all-day hike. This was just a few weeks ago with 2 longtime colleagues, James and John, guys. Okay. And so this was one of those hikes where you had to bring your own food. So of course we brought, Nancy, what do you bring on a long hike?
Trail mix.
Trail mix.
Yeah.
So look at this, appropriately labeled Monster Trail Mix. So look at the calories here are 150 calories per 3 tablespoons. So I just want to slow this down for a minute. That is not much trail mix. And I'm just going to put it here. Okay. Let me just show you what the 150 calories looks like. And I'd like all of you to think about, if you've ever had trail mix, you know, how do you eat this? You eat it by the handful, right? A grab, a grab.
Yeah. That's less than a handful.
50 calories right there. This is a level tablespoon, just to give you a sense of it. This is Nothing.
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 And the thing that was so difficult about this is, I'm not a big trail mix guy, but it was there, right? So you grab it, has anyone ever had one handful of trail mix?
Mm-mm.
I mean, you're in
Yeah.
for 450 calorie. First of all, my hand grab is more than what I have here in this
I was
cup.
going to say, that looks like
yeah.
you could grab, if you freely grabbed it, be more than
Nothing.
that.
That could be a shot right there. Just
Absolutely nothing. So you're in for hundreds and hundreds of calories. And you'd have no idea that it would be that many calories. And once you start, it's kind of hard to stop. But I
Well,
think
yeah,
in
those
the
are
pantheon, Jennifer, of foods that are difficult to stop eating, why don't you just finish this the calorie demo that we're doing here with your
Yeah.
story about your kryptonite?
yeah. So if you all have been tuning into these live events, my kryptonite are little white donut holes. So the powdered donut holes. And so I just was curious. I mean, sometimes you just don't even want to confront the calories because you don't even want to know. I have now confronted, so 3 donut holes, 3, they're like this big donut holes, 240 calories for 3. And that's a serving.
Unbelievable.
I don't think I've ever had a serving. If I've had little white donuts in the house, the serving is the box or half the box. So it's, yeah.
Very
That's
tough.
where it's the double whammy. It's like, all right, 80 calories a pop, right?
Right.
And,
they melt, and it melts.
it's so hard to stop.
It is.
Just in
it
the
is.
trail mix. I mean, these are
Mhm.
really hard exam. Like,
And
it's so
when
hard
you're
to
thinking
stop.
about in phase 1, wouldn't it be hard to say, you know what? I am out of the box because I've had a handful of trail mix, right? It would be like, well, I'm in the box. I've done everything. Like, that's nothing. Why should I even count that? Right? Like, I mean, I know it's like hard to even count it, but it counts.
Yep.
And it matters. So I had to, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
I was
go.
just gonna share what where did it go? The comment about, oh, Joe, I used to say my kids' waste, so the leftovers went to my waist.
Mm.
So that's definitely, yeah, I know. How many times have we said we don't even have to eat it? We can just look at it. And it goes there.
Susan added, you probably thought that the hike canceled out the trail mix. Susan, you know me well.
Yeah, that totally justifies it.
Unfortunately, we got rained out for part of it, so it wasn't even the big amount of PA that we thought it was going to be. Oh my goodness. All right.
Yeah.
So these were just the little BLTs, bites, licks, and tastes, and there's always more calories than you think. Of course, bigger indulgences. If little morsels like this can be a lot of calories, obviously, bigger indulgences are going to cause the calories to really skyrocket. And what do all of these foods have in common that we've just reviewed here? They all are very calorie dense. And this is sort of laying the groundwork for moving into strategies in a moment. They have a lot of calories per ounce. They have a lot of calories per bite. If you're eating these foods in cup portions, there are a lot of calories per cup or per plate, a lot of calories.
And
So-
they're hard to stop eating when you get
Oh.
started.
Isn't that the double whammy effect, Nance? I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as much as it can seem, as I said a moment ago, hard to believe at times that the lack of progress on the scale, which happens to everybody, is about calories. It is about calories. That's what it boils down to. So weight loss slowed down, gaining weight in phase 2. The best framework is to say, there's a calorie issue going on, and I'm going to become a calorie detective and practice some tighter calorie management strategies, which is exactly what we're going to get into now.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And once again, you guys are doing a great job of posting. So as we go through these various steps, we're going to be asking you to add in your experience. We'll ask you some questions. So, keep commenting. This is just great.
Right. Yeah. And we have many, Pam mentions, I had to let donuts and chips go. You learn what will work for you. That's like we were talking earlier. I can't let those white donuts come in the house. I've come to terms with that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into the solutions. What do you say, guys?
Yeah, it sounds really
That's
good.
Okay.
So we've got a series of potential next steps.
That's right.
And we'll start from the top. So the first one we want to look at is focus on weighing and measuring.
That's right.
Is that something you've done recently? So let me talk about what we mean here. So
Mhm.
this means pick a day or two, especially when you're home, where you discipline yourself to take everything, as much as you can of what you're eating or drinking, and put it in the appropriate measure first, and then put it onto the plate or the glass or whatever. So you would need a scale so you can weigh things. You need a tablespoon so that you can do, what Rick showed with the tablespoon.
I've
You
got my
need-
scale right here,
Yeah, you've got
Nancy,
your-
and my
great.
trusty tablespoon. It's always good to
Mhm.
you remind yourself by doing some periodic weighing and measuring.
Yeah, and then do you have a cup there by any chance, a measuring cup?
I don't, and I forgot the Cool Whip. It's upstairs. I may go
Oh,
grab it.
okay. All right, that's all right. But, and measuring cups as well, certainly to put things in. And again, as you're doing this, it's really helpful if you can notice, all right, this was a tablespoon, I'm putting it here. What does it look like?
Mhm.
This something or other weighed, even if it's like a potato. Oh, that potato weighed 8 ounces. Let me see what it looks like again. So you're starting to be able to eyeball things. This piece of chicken, whatever it is.
And Nancy, this also for folks who are watching in phase 1 and your weight loss has slowed down, this is including those in the box things.
Yeah,
Fruits
I
and
mean, this,
vegetables, your add-ins, it can matter. It can absolutely matter.
yeah,
Sorry,
I
just
think
wanted to-
that's a pretty common one that we wanted to talk about, the condiments very much, the add-ins that are part of the what's in the box can get caught up, especially things like the PB2, the fat-free, sugar-free puddings. They have, 20 plus calories per tablespoon
Mhm.
in, level tablespoon. And
Level
they can add up
tablespoon.
pretty quickly, right?
That's
Even
right.
milk and whatever you're putting in your coffee. So those are all good things to check. So I just again did a level tablespoon of peanut butter.
Yes.
So you can see that's
Right.
not a lot. How much is this what you're going to use on your peanut butter sandwich? Is
And that's
gonna be-
100 calories.
Yeah, that's 100 calories. Is that going to be
Mhm.
enough peanut butter? I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and with your sugar-free puddings, how many of us, because it's on the diet or more is better, we
Right.
don't even measure. You just kind of throw it in there and you assume that that's what it is, but the pudding can add up.
Hey,
Yeah,
talk
I mean, it's
about-
unusual to scoop it with a tablespoon, and even if you do, are you leveling it off? Or,
Right.
some of
Do
the
heaping.
the heaping scoops can be double.
But Nancy, this is not a level tablespoon of trail mix?
No, not quite, Rick, sorry.
Okay. Hey, Nancy, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
You you carefully scoop that peanut butter out and put it into that tablespoon. Very nicely done, very neat.
thank you.
What did you do with the peanut butter on the knife? Because that could sometimes, those calories don't count, right?
You weren't supposed to talk about that, Rick. Because of course, what's the natural thing to do? Because you got the rest of it's on the knife, so of course your finger goes up and then you lick the thing. So another way that you sneak in some calories with another lick. All right, you weren't
I'm
supposed to
wondering if
talk
our
about
viewers-
that.
what if our viewers, they know you pretty well at this point, Nancy. I wonder if our viewers could tell us what they think you might have been saying to yourself to minimize that peanut butter on the knife, if perhaps you might have licked it off.
Yeah, Susan, she mentions, I keep my tablespoon right by my blender for that reason. And it does. And then Marnie is mentioning, kind of to my point, after more is better, it is hard to have to weigh and measure again, because you're so used to having that more is better in phase 1, but
Right.
also don't get out of the habit. Even in phase 1, get started with the measuring, because that can really make a difference.
So Susan keeps her tablespoon right by the blender for that
Yeah.
very reason.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. I remember Coach Sandy, she has a tablespoon sort of tied with her salad dressing. Same
Yeah.
thing, so that she's making sure she's measuring her salad dressing.
Yeah.
So this is like, we're suggesting if you haven't weighed and measured recently
Mhm.
and you'd like to lock down a little more tightly your calorie management to either increase your weight loss in phase 1 or see better results in phase 2, this is one of 5 different steps that we're covering here. And you may not be someone who wants to weigh and measure every single thing, but it's really eye-opening to just pick it for a day or two and just take this on to weigh things and measure things. It will provide insights, and your mind will be blown at different times. By the way, Nance, let me set up the next example. Notice the examples that we're sharing here, whether it's Jen's Donuts or my trail mix or whatever, we didn't have to like go out of our life's normal experience to come up with these. You just walk through life and these experiences happen. They happen to us. They happen to you.
Yep.
Lots of calories in really small portions, if not hidden entirely. Nancy, can you share what your husband got? This is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
All right, so yesterday, my husband's a veteran. He was in the Air Force, and the school had a lunch for them yesterday that he went to. And he had the lunch, but he brought home like the dessert that they gave him, which is this blondie. You see?
Yes.
That's so big. That's so thick.
Now, it is pretty thick, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Are you weighing that bad boy?
oh, well, no. So right on the package, it says it's 3.5 ounces.
That's it. 3.5 ounces.
3.5 ounces. So that's significant because this thing has got chips in it. It's very greasy. It's 150 calories an ounce. So it's 525 calories. All right. Notice the size. You look at I have an iPhone 8. It's like half the size. It's small.
Yep.
But, having experienced much weighing and measuring, I decided before this event, I was going to weigh it, even though it said it was 3.5 ounces. It's 6 ounces.
Oh, at 150.
Yeah. And we can't,
900 calories, you guys. 900 calories in this one square.
That label, it seems like just it almost seems like an intentional deception. It's just awful. 3.5 ounces and it's 6. You think you're in for around 500 and you're in for 900.
Almost double. And, I know from years ago that is the law. Like you have to provide the amount that you say is on the label, but there's no rule that says you can't give them more.
Right.
You can't dip them.
So,
right.
Yeah. So, we could go down a tunnel with that, like the stories about, I'm just going to have a little bit of it, or I'm going to have half of it. But, it's just, that one blew my mind.
And one thing that I wanted to make a point, and Sandra, you mentioned this. So as we're going through kind of these next steps, if you are experiencing a weight slowdown, that, so Sandra, you say, I weigh and measure everything I put into my mouth, check that off. And so if you are doing these strategies, that's really great reinforcement, but I'm sure there's going to come one that maybe you're not doing, or there could be more to what you are doing. So as we are going through these next steps, you can celebrate what you are doing, but really try to identify some of our next steps that we're going through to help you. And so that brings me to, for those of you who have weighed, so Sandra, maybe you can chime into this since you weigh and measure everything, but so you've weighed, you've measured, or you simply have read the labels. Anybody been blown away by what you've seen? I know we were just blown away from that blondie. At any point, have you just been like, what, I'm just really curious about what these calories are. And then you just look and then you're just blown away.
Yeah. I know you go tell your example that you shared earlier, Jen, because that's another labeling snafu.
Yeah, it is. It is. So my kiddos, I have a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old, and one of their, quick and common things, and Nancy said your kids ate these too, ramen noodles. So we all know the ramen noodles, right? Let me just remind you. So ramen noodles are these little noodle packets, not very big at all. You can see compared to my hands, not very big. And it doesn't even take up the whole package. So one day I was just, fixing it for the boys, and I flipped it over and I was just curious, and I was blown. I even was like, are you kidding me? 2 servings? This is 2 servings? Who would ever think that this was not just one serving?
Not me.
Right. Like who eats, and I told my son, my oldest, he's like, who would just eat half of that, Mom? And I was like, yeah. So one serving is 190 calories. The whole thing is 370, which, let's face it, if we're gonna eat ramen noodles, we're gonna eat
You're gonna eat the whole bag. Yeah.
And if you, going back to your, like, getting the leftovers, if you eat your kiddos leftovers of the ramen noodles, you could be getting close to 200 calories, 190 calories.
So again, it keeps coming back to calories.
Mhm.
Not happy with the results on the scale, feel like you're working so hard. It's so frustrating, but our themes here, you're not alone. As hopeless as you can be, you can't give up. There's always a next
Yeah.
step. We've just targeted this first step, which is weighing and measuring. And if it's something that you want to take on in a more long-term way, great. Minimally though, practice it for a couple of days and it'll be worth the extra effort, because you'll
Mhm.
discover some things that you probably weren't aware of.
Yep.
Yes.
Guys, ready to move on to the next one? Or-
Yes. Yeah, I think it's
Absolutely.
time. Yeah.
Okay, so increase foods in the box. Now, this is relevant, obviously, to phase one people.
Mhm.
Practicing more is better. We've had a lot of nice comments in the from the feed here about that. But this also, if you're in phase two and you're out in the wide world of tempting foods, sometimes the freedom of going back into the box where you can eat a lot of food without worrying about the calories is exactly what you need to be doing if you want to either slow down a weight gain or manage the calories tightly enough to maybe lose some weight in phase two.
Mhm.
Practice the to-do approach at a higher level. People don't think this way, right, guys? It's like culturally, you got to eat less, you got to eat less, you got to eat less. Well, that's true of the high calorie, calorie dense foods like we've been reviewing here, but
Mhm.
people don't give themselves enough freedom around the very low calorie, high volume foods. And in that is so much more
Mhm.
successful calorie management if people take it on.
So let's ask our, viewers who have experienced and found more is better to be supportive in phase one and phase two. And so I know I have two of my folks in here, Lori and Jen. I want you to be speaking on this because I know you were open to it. I had to twist your arms. You didn't necessarily agree, but you did it. But talk about your experience with doing more is better. Whether you're in phase one, I know Jen, you're in phase two, and Lori, you're in phase one. So viewers, not just Lori and Jen, share
Yes.
your comments if you've
Yeah.
used more is better and how that has
and
supported you.
again, we've seen a few testimonials here already about the more is better. And, we're making a big deal about the calories, but Nancy,
Mhm.
something you've always imbued in me an appreciation for is the emotions behind a lot of our food choices and whatnot. And, if you think about high calorie tempting foods, a lot of calories per ounce, and that's been being thrown at us every time you're walking through life, no matter where you are. And then you're talking about a renewed focus on eating more of the low calorie foods. There's a really different experience involved there, isn't there, guys?
Mhm.
With
No
those
doubt.
higher calorie temptations, first of all, like if you just think of like what comes to mind, well, I got to be careful. It's like a whole philosophy of restriction. Can't eat many of these.
Mhm.
There's certainly things that aren't going to make you feel full. You're hungry when you eat these things,
Yeah.
high calorie tempting foods. And then there's of course guilt that comes along with it.
Mhm.
What are some thoughts that come to mind, some experiences, the feelings, Nancy, when you're eating more of the low calorie in the box to do foods that support successful weight loss and weight
Right.
management?
I mean, I've heard so many people describe it, and I feel that like you feel lighter.
Mhm.
You just feel accomplished.
Yep.
You just physically feel better. You probably aren't experiencing indigestion or any of those type of things. So you just, I can fill up on, like healthy foods and feel fine. But as opposed to what I always call like the Thanksgiving overeaten feeling of
Mhm.
being really like stuffed and all you want to do is lay down and take a nap.
Yes.
So you don't get that experience with the others. So there's so many benefits. And
How about this word, Nancy? Freedom.
yeah, that's
Freedom
a good
around
one.
food.
Yeah, like it's
I have to, I feel like you can continue to say yes to things instead of being like, well, nope, met my quota for the day, I'm done. And Kaylee, great that you're joining. She's in my phase 1 class, and she did 5 shakes a day and it worked. So really excited for her. I think we're going to be talking here in just a little bit. So that is helpful. And Susan talks about more is better as my life. I eat a lot of meal replacements. Watermelon helps me on more is better, low cal and filling. So, you know, we are going to go for that volume here in just a moment, but I know that Jen, you're on, and I've mentioned Jen, but she did a stint in phase 1 to do the boot camp, and she learned that she stepped away from doing more with the meal replacements and fruits and vegetables in phase 2. And so her takeaway from going back into phase 1 was to do more. And this past week, she had 68 servings of fruits and vegetables. So mind you, just a reminder, our minimum is 35, and she did 68. And if my mind is serving me right, I think you lost 3 pounds, Jen. So you can definitely confirm that. And
Oh, somebody said she had to leave early, so she's not on right now.
okay, yeah, but I just wanted to mention that there's always things to learn. And so Jacqueline, so glad you're tuning in, because I know that you were mentioning that you were frustrated and kind of experiencing this right now. So glad to see you on.
Glad to see you here, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Trudy, for my shakes with frozen fruit, I use 24 ounces of water floating away.
Oh,
But you know, the
Yeah.
difference there is that's a lot of food in the stomach, and that makes a difference in terms of
Mhm.
insulating yourself from the temptations. Those higher calorie foods just don't call you as loudly when you're able to eat a high volume of low calorie foods.
Mhm.
For John says for an average week, 75 plus servings, and he's holding off the immense amount of weight that he lost. Well done, John. That's great. 75 fruits and vegetables. Amazing. Amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, and I also have to bring up this point, and then we can, of course, move on to the next step. But if you are doing more is better, and you're weighing and you're measuring, then I know many of my clients, we do work on what are you actually eating with the more is better. Like with the fruits and vegetables, kind of what fruits and veggie servings you're eating. So that could also be another a step to consider.
That'll be the next one we look
yeah, we're
at.
going to get into that in a minute, Jen.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, missed that.
All right. So so is this your next step? And one thing that can be very effective is to plan one day where you do a blast day, right? So it could be take your average high day of meal replacements and put 2 more in there and see what happens if you really push them. Or vegetable fruits. Let's say, you know, whatever your typical high day is, maybe you have a day where you do 6 or 7. Well, blast it up 2 more and see what it's like when you do an 8 or 9 day. I put Rick on 10 veggie fruit days all the time.
Today
as a blast
you did.
day.
You gave, that's my plan today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Class at 1 o'clock.
yeah. And it helps. I mean, it makes a difference. So that could be a wonderful next step.
I'm
for
on track,
somebody.
by the way, Nancy, just
Yeah.
so you know.
All right. So Rick, so let's, you want to bring the slide up one more time here?
Yeah,
And-
so we've talked about weighing and measuring, take it on, insights to be gained. We've talked about increasing foods in the box, not just because they have 70, 80, in some cases, 90% fewer calories per bite than the typical foods that are out there. There's also a freedom about that type of a plan. It's a plan that won't involve guilt when you're saying, I'm going to eat more.
Yeah.
Try to saying that with any other type of plan. So that's the safety of foods in the box. And now, as Jen, you just mentioned, what kind of foods and what are the preparation methods for the foods that you're eating? So we call them high volume prep methods.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
and so, and we've got to, like for this, there's a specific definition we're using here. So, and again, this is for the reason of trying to get as much volume for the fewest calories as possible. So we're talking about shakes made either in a blender or food processor with lots of ice and actually no produce in it. So the flavoring comes from, you know, spices, other flavorings, non-caloric beverages, that type of thing. And also a focus on your less starchy, more watery vegetables and having a day where that really is the focus. In fact,
Carolyn, hey, Carolyn, good to see you here. I've worked with Carolyn. High volume, this is what she does. High volume, low calorie double shake every single day for breakfast. She's got it up to
Oh
8
my, I love it.
ounces. That's
great.
fantastic. Talk about insulating yourself.
Oh, that's so great.
Really full and satisfied on really low calories using the guidelines Nancy just mentioned. That's wonderful.
That's, and you, yeah, that's any, yeah.
And the volume method and also the doing more, just going back to some of the comments talking about being a volume eater, these are going to be so helpful for you. Practicing more volume with the fruits and vegetables, as well as those high volume prep methods.
Let me give a couple of quick food demos here, guys, if you
Yeah.
So Nancy, I made the plan, what was it, 2 weeks ago, to start bringing back something that, sometimes you ride a fabulous recipe and it falls off your radar screen. And it was like almost a year. I had gotten off the pumpkin pie spice in my shakes. So here we have the 120 with the pumpkin pie spice and the vanilla extract, which allows me to add way more ice, more water, and blend the heck of it. I also put a couple of equals in there. It's super sweet, but it also has like a savory, starchy undertone with the pumpkin spice. And as I shared with you today, Nancy, I've just been doing these for every other shake. I'm so glad that I brought this back. I don't put fruit in these shakes. I'm playing the game that Carolyn just demonstrated there, which is how big can I make the shake so it's still really tasty and satisfying by adding non-caloric flavorings, no fruit. How big can I make it so that it still tastes great, but it has as much volume as possible? So that's quickie.
So that's one of Rick's favorites. And so if you're tuning in, we want to hear some of your favorite high volume, low calorie shake recipes or meal recipes that you do. And again, it's made in a food processor or a blender if you're going for the shakes. And I have to say, one of my very favorites lately to be doing is just having salads. So green, leafy greens with the Fiesta salad or the Fiesta entree. You get so much volume, and I don't need any dressing because of the entree. And I know, Nancy, I shared with you and Rick today how I've been with HMR going on 14 years. And there was a time when I never did a shake without fruit. Like I didn't even know other recipes that I liked. And so I made it my mission, because we were talking about these high volume, lower calorie shakes. I took the low condiment list to the grocery store, and no lie, you guys, I spent like $50 on add-ins and have now found some of my very favorites, like sugar-free cherry syrup with the vanilla is one of my tops. And if I could put almond extract in there, I would, because that would be delicious. But so make sure you're keeping your favorite high volume, low calorie shake recipes coming.
Let me add to your salad comment. I'm going to show
Rick, just one more thing. Would you hold up your add-ins again, because some people didn't get to see them?
I just responded to her. It was
all right. I'm sorry.
The McCormick spice. So here are my two great filler veggies. Can of green beans, 52 calories. Are you kidding me? 2 cans of green beans, 104 calories. Are you kidding me? Put that on a plate. And by the way, the new mac and cheese is enough richness to flavor all 3 cups for 104 calories plus the mac and cheese. That's a low calorie meal, but this is probably my favorite example, guys. People from my groups are rolling their eyes because I mentioned this one all the time. So here I have 3 cups, maybe even a little more, of zucchini at 25 calories. Nancy, we always learned that in our early training days, 25. Some sites say 20 calories per cup. This is whatever value you want, 60, 75 calories for all of this right here. Talk about a way to bulk up your meals without adding many calories. Wow. And both of these things really take on the flavor of whatever you've added to them. So just those are 2 of my big strategies for bulking up the volume, managing calories more tightly, but being able to eat as much as I want. Love it.
There's a couple of other things. Suzanne saying celery with salsa is awesomely filling and low calorie. That's great and nice and chewy if you're looking for that. And then was it Larry? Larry's talking about, when we're talking about the less starchy vegetables, cauliflower rice, green beans, broccoli, extra salads. Those are all options on a day like that. So good. I think people are getting the gist here.
Yep.
Mhm.
I think we need to rip through the next
Yeah,
one here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, as you're showing your screen, is this your next step? Do you need to focus on a day where you're pushing volume?
Yes.
So that if you're in phase one, can you have a day where all your shakes look like this? Can you look at any entree you have is just accompanied with the non-starchy vegetables? Or if you're in phase two, is that a day again where you take on, all right, I'm going to do 3 shakes this week, 3 shakes today, or, you know, whatever, but just pick a day. What are you going to do that's higher volume than you're used to, and see what happens?
Yeah. Play with
All right,
all
next
of the
step.
different low-cal, no-cal recipe add-ins,
Mhm.
flavorings, syrups that are out there. All right, excellent. Let's cover the last food one here, guys.
Yeah,
Environmental control. Practice more environmental control. So when we talk environmental control, there are 2 types of environmental control. There's additive, bringing supportive foods into your environment, and then we have subtractive environmental control.
Mhm.
Removing the foods that call your name most loudly. So I think we've all learned that this is a battle that is hard to win, right, Jen?
It is. It is. And I think, many of you have already mentioned some of the things that you've learned you can't have in your house. And so make sure you're sharing some of those things you've learned you just can't have in the house, because it's hard for you to control yourself. I know I have many things that are hard to control myself when they're in my environment. And I know I was just going to read some of the comments here. So baby carrots and cocktail sauce, Larry's mentioning. We have many folks who are joining, so make sure to continue to say hi.
I have to
But,
add to that one, Jen. So, because Susan just said she hadn't heard of that one. Susan, you may remember a Facebook Live quite a few ago, but Charlie, wonderful, sweet guy. He was big on the baby carrots with the cocktail sauce. And Coach Bill, my brother, just this past weekend said, I had a bunch of baby carrots and cocktail sauce. It was awesome. And Charlie's his who he works with. And I said, hey, that was Charlie's recipe. So now we have Larry doing it. So Susan, I mean, the universe is aligned here. You have to
Yeah.
cocktail sauce makes a great salad dressing.
I
Yeah.
haven't done that either. I'm going to put that on my list.
Yeah, let us know how it is. I love cocktail sauce. So I
Yeah,
love- I
it's
haven't
great.
tried it before. So environmental control, we know there are things that you can't have in the house. Is there something that you've been getting into? Even bites, licks, and tastes, which we've talked about. Chances are, if you're not happy with what's happening on the scale, those items are playing a role in having either slowing down your weight loss or having weight creep up in phase 2. It's just what happens. It's the most normal thing in the world. So is there something to do there?
Mhm.
Nancy, I
Right.
mentioned to you my notes from our phase 2 group today, right at the top. My 2 things that I highlighted with squiggly lines were both additive environmental control strategies.
Yeah.
I need to place my next HMR order. I just noticed I'm starting to run low, and then I have to get to the store. I'm running low on some of my essentials. And, it's just so easy to have the
That was
data
one of mine.
and-
Yep.
Yeah,
and not
it's
have.
just so if it's not in the house, and prepped and ready to go, you can't eat it. And, so it's kind of both sides. And
I love Pam's comment. My husband and son have a pantry in the garage. The junk food and the foods that call my name go in there. So kind of keeping it out of sight, out of mind. I know one of my goals this week is to go to the grocery store on Friday, because I noticed my fruits and veggies go down on Saturday and Sunday. So you may need to stock up more than just one time a week to help you.
Yep. All right,
absolutely.
guys, if I could just sort of summarize the last one,
Yep.
Yeah.
just because our time is short. Increase
Mhm.
your physical activity. Feel free to add in here, but I think that the main takeaway here is physical activity is obviously very important for your health. It also, for your weight, it burns calories. It allows you to eat more in phase 2. But if you're really unhappy with what's happening on the scale, the reality is the food part of the equation, and we've just covered 4 different strategies related to the food part that you see here on the slide. These are likely to have a bigger impact, just because you all know you can kill yourself with physical activity to get an extra 500 calories, and that matters, but you can be missing thousands of calories on the food end
Mhm.
if you're not careful. But the reason we have physical activity on this slide, in addition to the reasons I just gave, or because when you increase your physical activity, when you push yourself, it reinforces your commitment on everything else you're doing around your weight. So in theory, these first four are food strategies, but by really extending yourself on your exercise, there's something that happens there that can actually help you double down on some of those food strategies in an even more intensive and urgent way. Nancy, what would you say beyond what I've just said there about the physical activity?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And one thing to just notice, if you are already doing physical activity, even if you're doing it every day, are you doing it once and done? Because
Mhm.
I think, I call them PA snacks. If you can find 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there to just do something, it sort of recommits you to healthy behaviors. So I think, that's something to look into. Can you get in some like PA snacks throughout the day, peppered through as really, because again, you can find 5 minutes somewhere.
Mhm.
It will have you recommitted to the resolve you have to eat healthy. So
Mhm.
that's something to look into.
Yes, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we've covered some important perspectives. We know how frustrating it can be, but remember, you're not alone. This happens to everyone. The scale is stubborn. That is a very difficult part of this whole thing, but it's important to not give up because there's always a next step. So we've just covered weights and measures. If you haven't done that, just pick a day or two to double down on your weights and measures, and you will find some really interesting insights from doing that. We've talked about increasing your days in the box, within the box foods, not just because the calories are lower compared to virtually everything else out there, but because it gives you more of a freedom around your food choices. We've also talked about volume strategies, more blended shakes where you can get creative with non-caloric or very low calorie add-ins to make big filling shakes that have very few calories. That's another way to support better calorie management or weight loss. And then finally, making sure your environment is supporting your whole effort here. Don't undermine everything you're doing by having a showdown with your favorite foods in your own home every single night. You're not going to win those fights. None of us would. So environmental control is an area where we really do have to.
This is going in the garbage
I was
disposal
just
after
going
we
to
get
ask
done. Just
where
wanted you to
is it
know.
going? I was going to ask you.
No, it's going in the garbage disposal.
We hope that all of you found the time we spent here useful, valuable, and that you found some strategies that you can take away and start using. What are we talking about next week, Jen?
So we are, Coach Kate and myself are going to be back in our kitchen, and we are going to be cooking up some different recipes to help you over Thanksgiving and the long weekend. And I did put a post in our community of your favorite out of the box Thanksgiving kind of dishes or recipes, because we want to prepare and be ready to offer you some of your favorite dishes and favorite recipes in the box so that you can still enjoy some of those flavors. So make sure you get in there and share some of your favorite out of the box dishes so that we can help you, and tune in next week, because who doesn't like a good recipe, right?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Yeah.
All right.
Really good.
All right. No further ado, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you.
Bye,
Have a great
everybody.
week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.